Hello and welcome back to Moonstar, a Sailor Moon podcast. I'm your host, Alex Summers, and today we will be covering Match Point for Sailor Moon, episode 11 of the original English dub. For those who may not know, much of the original dub is available to purchase on VHS and DVD, an official release. Many of you might already know you can buy it from us on Mercari. Our name there is Sunshine Farm, and that would support Moonstar directly. But we also urge you to dig around and just find the best way for you to watch along with the show as we cover it, because I think that just makes it more fun for everybody. In Sailor Moon news, the official Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon YouTube channel has posted an AMV, or anime music video, for Moon Effect, which will be included in the second disc of the Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, the 30th anniversary memorial album, to be released on February 18th, 2023. The song, sung by the 10 Sailor Guardians, was originally produced as an insert song for the Sailor Moon Eternal film in 2021. Not much else really going on, but definitely go ahead and check that out. It's a fun video, a fun watch. It's in Japanese, in case anyone was wondering. But yeah, not a lot going on for Sailor Moon news. So without much else, let's just get into the episode. All right, I'll see you in the outro. Peace.
Tennis was never my best game, but today on Sailor Moon, I have to go 30 love against the masterful minion of the Negaverse. Lucky for me, Tuxedo Mask turns up for a match set. Stick around, Sailor Moon will be right back.
How are you doing?
Okay, good. How are you?
Pretty good. I like your sweater. Is it cold up there?
Yeah.
It's supposed to get... How cold is it?
Well, like this whole week, it's pretty much supposed to be either just above zero or like in the negatives for temperature before it goes back to like just below 20 or 20s.
How long do you have that kind of cold for up there?
Well, right now it's just, it'll come back again, but like starting from tonight all through this week, it'll be like that.
Oh, well, we're getting down to 30 next week, which never happens here. So I'm kind of excited for that. I'm like, snow? And everyone's like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, oh, come on. Oh, well. So this episode we're doing is Match Point for Sailor Moon. Have you watched it recently?
That's obviously that's the first one. That's Nephrite's debut. Yeah. I haven't seen it recently, but like I can remember it.
Okay. I just watched it this afternoon, and I started I kept a notebook on it this time. So this episode first aired September 13th, 1995 in Canada, and September 25th, 1995 in the United States. And it is, like you were saying, it's the first time we see Nephrite. Where does he, if you have to rank your generals in your order of favorite, I think you said Zoisite is your favorite. So, yeah. But go in order from favorite to least favorite.
Outside of Zoisite, I'd probably do Nephrite next, and then Kunzite, and then Gadite.
Okay. I think for me it would be Kunzite, Zoisite, Jadeite, and then Nephrite. Even though I like Nephrite a lot, I kind of like all the generals, but I don't know why. I think for me, Jadeite gets the special bonus points because he's the first one, and I think I was introduced to that set of episodes so much when I first got into the show because it was like all I had on VHS. You know, I had like that little collection, so I like knew him so well from those. And it's funny, I posted some pictures of his like fashion stuff, I guess. And I was like, what will happen if I like do a boost on this thing just to see what, you know, how it goes? And it costs like no money. not a lot. And I was like, oh my, everyone loved that for whatever reason. They were just like obsessed with his like weird outfits, which I thought was so funny because one of the reasons I wanted to bring Sailor Moon to people now is I think some of the way they did the fashion and the animation there was very, very, it's like kind of frozen in time, you know? So it's a great way to see what people thought was good looking then. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's in like a fun lens too. Because they really got creative with their clothing, like even on the girls later on when they
Right.
were out of their school clothes and stuff, they started to go into like different looks and all that.
Hmm.
So Netflix's strategy, it starts out in the English dub version, the 90s dub, and Netflix talking to Queen Beryl, and he's basically saying,
Jedi failed because he tried to collect energy from too many people at once.
Oh, I see. And you believe you have found a better plan, Nephlite?
I can get more energy from one single person than Jedi was able to collect from 100.
How can this be?
but the way he usually goes about it is to put a curse on an item that is important to the person or that they use a lot. And then the more they use it, the more their quote energy grows. But really, they're like the more of an asshole they turn into, kind of is like what happens.
Yeah.
How do you feel about his whole way of like doing things, like his arc, and how, like, what's your take on him in general?
I think, well, one reason, I'm sure I've said this before too, like early on when we started this, but one of the main reasons why I like his character so much is because of the relationship with Naru that ends up happening. And it's heightened by the fact that Ito did that episode, the one when he passes away at least. And I just thought that was kind of more unexpected, and it was really super well done, and it was sad. And I like that you get to see a more sensitive side of him because you didn't see anything like that with Jadeite, where like Nephrite was kind of more of a good guy in the end, and that's the reason why I like him a lot.
I have to agree as far as storylines go and
Hmm.
arcs. I think his is probably the strongest.
Yeah.
It's something I was kind of getting excited for when I was watching this one, thinking, "Oh, we're getting into this set." Is that not only because of him, we get to see all of these new layers in Molly's character as well, and I think the lady, the voice actress who does Molly, what's her name?
In the original one, Mary, I think it's Mary Long.
Didn't you interview her?
No,
I thought you said you interviewed Molly. Was it the new Molly? Maybe I'm thinking of something
no,
else.
I haven't. No, I haven't done Danielle either.
Oh, I told you that's my dream interview. That's what it was. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
I love her so much. But you really start to hear, that was my reminder for this. You really start to hear the voice actress kind of dig into the character more because there's a lot of emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And it's also an interesting talking point because Nephlite's age, I call him Nephlite because that's what they call him in the 90s one. And you
Yeah.
say Nephrite because it's the Japanese correct way,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Um, his age is unknown technically. Like I'm looking now online. Do you know how old he's supposed to be?
Not specifically either, but I'm sure he's probably he's probably supposed to be like in his 20s, like mid to late 20s.
Yeah, something like that. And then we know Molly and Serena are in middle school,
Yeah.
essentially. Uh, and then like the whole question of how appropriate it is. It's so weird because like I don't watch a ton of other anime. I would say I watch like 7 to 10 at the most. I would consider myself like a real fan. And then the rest of it is kind of like I have to kind of get into it, you know?
Yeah.
Is that it seems to me though that at least anime that was created in this time that was sort of just commonly in it, right? Like this sort of younger girl, older guy
Yeah.
fantasy. Because it's
Yeah.
in Cardcaptor Sakura, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a main instance of where that happens. At least like Sakura has crushes on guys and that are older, and but the main gay relationship in Cardcaptor Sakura is like a equal age thing with Yukito and Toya. So,
but that was the thing that they were all concerned about, was the gay stuff when they were translating that one, and it wasn't so much the age. What's your take? Why do you think we see that so much in shows like this?
I just think maybe in Japan too, like in the same realm that anime back then, it's always been, but even back then in Japan, that like how gay characters have always just been so normal and nothing special about it. I think that's the same case where, I don't know, maybe I think it's potentially more common over there for relationships to have more of an age gap, because I know there's several like big, or maybe not several, I don't know, like I know one for sure. There's like a really big manga artist who's in his like late 50s, early 60s, and he married like a 20-something-year-old like content creator. So I think it's just like it's always been more normalized over there too.
That could be true. I really don't know enough to say. But also I was curious if maybe it's just that in American culture, when we see anything, our knee-jerk reaction is to either sexualize it or turn it violent. You know what I mean? For most of, I mean, that's kind of like the argument for what our culture is like, I guess. But I think it's possible that when they have stuff like this in there, it's more of just the reality that sometimes a crush like that might happen. But I don't think they see it as so sexual. I think it's more of a like, does that make sense? Like maybe it's just, maybe we draw more into it than is actually there. But it'll be interesting because I think my opinion might change by the end of this arc, depending on how. I don't remember it that well, so we'll see how intense it actually is, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it would be weird to me if they were doing things between the character Molly and Nephlite like the same way they were with Uranus and Neptune, like the amount of touching and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember if there is that kind of stuff in there?
No, I don't. I mean, I would have to watch that episode again, but I don't really think there is. I think it's mostly just like, casual stuff and her not knowing who he really is, obviously. And
wasn't it kind of mostly an instance of like almost one of those fantasy relationships in her head based on micro interactions with somebody, where it's almost not even in his, like, let's pretend he's not a villain, right? But like in his world, maybe it's like he was just nice to this girl 5 times and now she's obsessed with him. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's what it was. I know, like, in that regard, in terms of Sailor Moon and villains, like, obviously stuff didn't get way more predatory until Super S. So
I was going to actually ask about that too. Like, there seems to be a theme in the first season and then in Super S2 a little bit of the characters, like the Sailor Scouts, being attracted to the male villains. And I noticed for a long time, like, much of Sailor Moon are Sailor Moon S, with the exception of like Professor Tomo, obviously, but they just kind of did away with male villains for a while. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah.
Do you think it was because they were trying to like not have that factor in there intentionally?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Naoko was really like thinking about that, but because, well, yeah, it's hard to say, I guess, because I mean there was still Fisheye, but Fisheye didn't end up being a total villain in the end, and
yeah, the Amazon trio really didn't, right? Like they all get turned human. Yeah. But it's just an interesting thing I always wondered about, if like, because it was clearly a choice per season to do it that way, like I just wonder what the reasoning behind it. I think maybe also the choice to have less of a focus on that is trying to show character growth, where it's like the easiest way to not show that is to just not have the option there. I don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what's next? Oh, it's also the first time we meet Zoisite, and it's set up that...
You're sure of yourself, aren't you?
Go away, Zoisite. This is not your affair.
You think you can succeed where Jedi failed?
Back off.
Zoisite is kind of picking at Nephlite a little bit. To me, they seem like rivals. I think it's a little more predatory than that on Zoisite's part.
Yeah.
What do you think of their relationship in general?
I thought it was interesting. I mean, it's even more interesting when you watch the first dub, because I still think that Kristen Bishop, rest in peace, that did Zoisite, that she did a really good job of making her own version of him. And I think that kind of, when you watch the original show and that original dub, then you kind of have an even further different perspective on it.
I agree with you. I think that it's one of those things, especially now that if people are listening along with us, if they listen to the news segment I put from the 90s at the beginning last week, we're talking about a time period where a man on broadcast American news said to a Japanese lady, most Japanese people don't have blonde hair, like as if he was stunned that they would draw a cartoon with blonde hair. And it was like that is the level that the world was at the time. Does that make sense? Where it's like it, and I think it's so great that we have that version of Zoisite, because it makes comparing it to first the Japanese version, but then now the new dub, actually more fun and interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it sheds a light on what was going on in that time, and that's kind of frozen forever. Like sometimes as you go ahead, people try to like mess with history, you know what I mean, and all that, but like this is sort of proof of how things were back then a little bit. And like you were saying, what was the voice actor's name again?
Kristen Bishop.
Kristen Bishop took, because a lot of the other ones, at least, they were, I listened to some of your interviews and they were saying, well, they would play the Japanese and then say, do it like that. So even though the Japanese tones and stuff weren't that helpful to them, at least it was, I guess, the same presenting gender at that time. And now it's like, and then Kristen had to take a male character and be like, how do I make this female in a way that's not like a caricature? Do you know what I mean? And is like still interesting and different. And to be honest with you, I'm not even joking. I didn't know from watching the show as a kid that it was supposed to be a male character. Could you tell, or like, did you already know when you first saw her performance?
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't have. Like the first time I saw any episodes that Zoisite was in, I didn't have any gauge about that at all. So it was convincing.
Especially because the way they animate her I'm using her for this, I guess, because this is the version we're watching, but there's never any like I guess maybe it's just the way the general outfits are too, but I'm like, yeah, that could for sure be a lady. Like they're very unisex.
Yeah, all the outfits in season 1 are like really asexual.
Yeah, I kind of love that. I think we need more of that. Okay, so next in the episode, something I thought was sort of funny, the character Katie, who is Nephlite's target, was Molly's talking about her like
What has happened to her?
Oh, we're sisters. Our parents are best friends. We were raised together. We're so close. We've never seen this girl before. I'm pretty sure we never see her again after this episode. But they go so far as to give us like a baby version montage of Katie and Molly at one point, which I was like, this is the kind of filler that I miss from Crystal. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so unnecessary.
Katie, is something the matter? I'd like to help, if I can.
Why don't you mind your own business?
Oh, I'm sorry, Katie.
But we get, like, Molly background, which I don't know that they have time for anything like that, you know, when you're condensing seasons. Do you remember any of this kind of stuff, from these sort of filler episodes?
Yeah. I mean, more so obviously with like S and Super S. But But it's interesting because, you know, obviously the only characters that ever came back in that regard that were victims of villains were, you know, like Unazuki and Motoki. So
Which ones are they?
I don't remember their English names. Unazuki is the girl that has the well, the male name for in the first dub is Andrew, and then
Oh, Andrew.
I don't Motoki or Unazuki is the girl that has the brown hair and like white the brown hair with the yellow ribbon ponytail.
And she's like a cafe.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
know who you're talking about.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, they do come back a couple of times. I like that those characters though. And sometimes people will do fan art of like Naru Molly and make her like Sailor Earth or whatever.
yeah.
And like first of all, Tuxedo Mask is the Earth Scout, but then second of all, if you've ever seen like Sabrina the Teenage Witch,
yeah,
this is like Naru is like her connection to the human world. It's important that she have people in her life that are not scouts. Otherwise, it's sort of like, I don't know, it keeps her grounded. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So I like that Molly's there to be I don't know, a normal type Pokemon, whatever we're gonna equate it to that. What do you think of Nephlite as Maxfield Stanton? His human man persona.
Oh, he's so cool! He's really handsome. I don't know. Have you ever seen him before? Who is he? He's a young businessman. Do you know him? Well, I know he's president of his own company. He just moved here a few days ago. So cute! I'm in love.
They're always kind of whenever any of the villains try to do that, it's just kind of like silly and whatever. You just kind of, it's usually never anything that's very doesn't stand out a whole lot. I don't know.
It reminds me a little bit of Team Rocket.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I remember his voice is already kind of deep. And then he like the first time you see him as that guy, he's just like way down here. And I'm just like, why? That's what human is. Like, I thought that was so funny. But then I wonder if that's a voice actor choice. If he's like, okay, so what would Nephlite of the Negaverse do to impersonate a human in his person? You know what I mean? Like, what if it's like one of those moments? But I don't know. I think he's kind of goofy as a human villain. Do you remember Evil Katie at all? Like when she turns bad? Okay, so in the English dub, the girl who did it, I wonder if it's one of the scouts, but she goes from good to bad, and when she gets bad, it's kind of actually scary because she starts like she's kind of sweet in the beginning, and then she sounds like,
excuse us, it's getting very late.
Just one more game! Katie, stop! Get out! No, Katie, we're not leaving! You have to stop now! Get out of here, both of you! No!
a possessed witch, basically. Yeah. And I thought that was kind of a great range for her.
Most of the women that did the monsters in the original dub, it was a lot of the same people over and over again. Like it was Kristen Bishop did a bunch of them. Loretta Jaffalis did a bunch of them. Loretta was the voice of Udial.
Ujiel for the American one.
Yeah, and Catherine Disher, who was Unazuki in the original one, she did a bunch. So they just used like the same people for pretty much all of them, I think.
I think that's smart. And also from what we learned, if people are listening to the interviews we've posted, is that they were not paid much at all. Like even by the standards then, it was, who was it? They said something like $90 per session or something.
Yeah, Katie was the one who said that.
That's horrendous. It's like so bad.
Yeah.
I feel it makes me appreciate them and like the effort they put in so much more too, to know though that they were doing it for such little money. And it also makes me understand why we had the change in voices, because it's like there wasn't much to keep them there at the time. How did they know it was going to be such a big deal, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm totally a lot more understanding of that, the
Mm.
turnover and all that. I thought the animation was pretty decent in this. I thought I liked the way whoever did the animations, like when the evil item is taking over the person and then the monster happens. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
But I thought that was done really well. It's like really creepy, actually.
Mhm.
Go look at it, people. I'll put something out there somewhere on something. But do you remember the animation from this episode at all enough?
I'd have to see it again.
Let me see if it says who animated it here. Would it be the director? No.
The animation director.
Juni Junichi Sato.
That's the director. Just a normal director.
I wish it would tell me. Oh well.
I can figure it out.
I thought the animation in the episode was done well, but I thought as far as battle sequences go, this one was really silly. And I kind of don't like that so much. I know it's like meant for kids, but they do a lot of serious ones too. And when they're goofy like this, it's just sort of hard to like get into it. How do you feel about the silly fight scenes?
Oh, yeah, I'm on the same page with you. I like a lot of because a lot of the stuff, a lot of the monster encounters and fights in season one were like really creepy. So I like when that happens instead of what you just said.
Yeah, well, because in this one, most of it is just Serena in a tennis ball, and she looks really silly. The one cool thing that happens in this one, Tuxedo Mask finally does something besides throw a rose. He uses his cane, and it extends really far and pokes the thing in the face, which I thought, okay, that was cool then. So we got that. And then I also like the way they animate when the monster dies to the moon tiara, because like the moon dust thing is my favorite finishing animation, I guess, because I don't know, the like spiral heart attack and all of those are so stock footage repetitive, you know, they did the moon dust different each time. But yeah, it's kind of, they have all this great music behind it, but then all of this like silly stuff, like they're bouncing around in a tennis ball, and I'm like, okay. Oh, the sailor says theme was about bravery.
It's hard to be brave, I know. But there are lots more ways to be brave than fighting monsters from the Negaverse, like telling the truth when it really matters, or standing up for someone who's totally geeked out in embarrassment, or doing what's right when you know it's not anything you want to do.
You mean like doing that homework that's been stacking up on your bed?
Homework? Heroic? No way!
It's basically trying to teach kids that like you should do the right thing even when it's hard, and like a lot of times doing the right thing is like the difficult thing, and that kind of message. How do you think that translates to 2023, because we're coming up on that?
I don't know. I think it probably still has the same message it would today.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing that even adults, like when I go back and watch stuff like this, I think sometimes people get so focused on their career and their family, and you know, I want to get this next thing, or I want to get this, I don't know, like the next big break or whatever it is, and then they forget that like your integrity still matters, you know, and like that kind of stuff, because I'm sure part of the reason you're having so much success with your interview career is that everybody who you've interviewed would probably say, oh, he was super respectful, he was prepared, like it was a great experience, and that's why they're still rolling through, you know. Anyway, so Sailor Moon can bring up a lot of interesting points, I think. uh, that's all the notes I had for today's episode.
Okay.
Oh, I was listening to the Katie interview and I wanted to ask you something from it. Oh yeah, I've noticed in a lot of them you'll like show them your the set
artwork.
yeah, the production artwork. And I love that you get to do that with them, and I was wondering who out of everyone you've interviewed that you've gotten to show that stuff to, who's had like the best reaction
In terms of like Sailor Moon people.
It could be anybody.
I don't know. No one's honestly probably like the first person I did that kind of like started all this when I virtually met Eric Vale and I showed him my sketch set of Yuki from Fruits Basket. He had a really fun reaction to that. Yeah, I mean everybody kind of like does the same way, but because they're all older, they're not really doing like the freak out holy shit stuff like somebody younger would.
I'm hoping eventually you get an interview with someone who is like a big fan of one of their own shows or something, because have you met anyone like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean a lot of voice actors like watch the shows that they're in or they already were, or like it was their goal to like be part of this franchise or whatever.
Maybe, who knows, maybe some of them thought it was cool, but I would love for someone to just have that, oh, that's like that interest, that common interest. I think that would be so fun. Who else have you done?
Yeah, so I've done Susan, Roman, Barbara Radecki, Robert
Susan
Susan is Jupiter.
I was gonna say Barbara was
Neptune.
Okay.
Robert Tinkler, who was Rubius and Pupudan.
Oh my god.
I'm
just laughing because I was obsessed specifically with Pupulan from Super S as like a young kid, because I had that movie from the rentals when I was like little, and I was like, why do I like him so much? I couldn't understand. It was so funny. I love that you've interviewed him. Maybe I'll put that one up for fun for everybody this winter.
I think that there has to be and then Emily Claire Barlow, who was Venus in season 3 and season 4.
So we're just missing a Mercury, right? From the Inners.
Yep.
And then Uranus. Have you done any of the Uranus girls?
No, unfortunately. I love because you already know that the original Uranus, like nobody knows, she's not missing, but like nobody knows like
how to get a hold of her for stuff.
Yeah. And then the other one in the new dub, Erica Mendez, she's like one of the modern queens of anime dubs, and she doesn't do interviews, at least not right now. So
yeah, well, I mean, there's like, I've been watching people's careers for so long now. It's everything is cyclical and it's like a wave, right? She's riding this wave right now. I'm sure in like 5 to 10 years there's going to be something where she's like, you know what, I've got some extra time, why not? And I've seen it happen to pretty much anyone I've been a fan of. I think you've gotten, let's see, what about Pluto?
Yeah, already I've done not either of the original because one of them's dead, but the Veronica Taylor was Pluto in the redub. So,
and that's where we're gonna end the episode today. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Moonstar. For more of Chris, you can follow him on YouTube and Instagram at Chris Mayek. That's ChrisMayek. For more of Alex, you can follow the Sunshine Farm Entertainment Instagram and YouTube pages, as well as Alex Summers, SFE, on TikTok. To support Moonstar directly, consider checking out our Mercari store, or Mercury, I don't know which is correct, under the name Sunshine Farm. Until next time, peace.
And again! Fireballs! I hate fireballs! There's too many! She's not playing fair!
Shall we finish her off together?
You bet.
Got her! Oh! Sailor Moon!
What? Oh! Tuxedo Mask, are you okay?
Never mind! Attack her now!
Huh? Huh? Oh!
Moonstar Sailor Moon podcast is created for informational and entertainment purposes only. We do not claim any rights over audio clips and music used in any episode, as this media belongs expressly to the license and copyright holders.